Hello, everybody, and welcome to Leadership, the Leadership live stream with me, Bill, the company's expert. And I apologize, I had some technical difficulties immediately before the stream started. It was, for those of you who are, I'm sure, are dying to know, you plug in a USB device like a flash drive, and all of a sudden, your microphone doesn't work. It's wonderful. So I love being able to having to deal with these things at the 11th hour, but we're here. Thank you for being here. To everyone who's here, you guys are awesome. This is the third episode of the series. We are going to talk about executive skills. And if you have an ambition to climb the corporate ladder, to get promoted into a senior management position or a C-level position or anything like that, that's maybe your goal right around the corner or someday in the future. That's what we're here to talk about, because there is a hell of a lot of fluff and I don't know, just misinformation surrounding this stuff. And I was going to share with you some of my experiences and things I've learned along the way, having been a former CEO of a smaller company and worked in that world a little bit. So that's what we're going to talk about. But before we get into that, just right at the very beginning, I received the question by email, and I am going to respond to it here in the stream if I can, because it's somewhat related. Let's see if I can operate my own equipment here and get this happening. Let's see. Here we go. Okay, I don't know if you guys can see that, but here's the question. This is what it says. Hi, Bill. Hope you are doing well. I wanted to know your thoughts about this situation. A job is presently done in X way. I put forward to my juniors that it should be done in Y way. My rationale is that it is easy to supervise and manage the job if we choose the Y approach. Okay, this is what the latest guidelines recommend as well. They say, okay, because I'm their boss, but actually they are not genuinely interested. Okay, this is quite a common situation, actually. The initial learning curve is tough for elderly folks in the team. Also, even if they manage it and learn to do things more time efficiently, their concern is that they will be given additional responsibilities. Oh yeah, I've been there. My objective is for everyone to do things easily, and I don't have any intention of giving them extra work, but I cannot promise no instructions will come from above me. Yes. So how to get buy-in from the team and get what I want? Okay, excellent question. I'm going to call this person Mr. X, okay? That's an excellent question. So they're doing things a certain way. You want them to do things a different way. Maybe it's easier for you, okay? But for whatever reason, you want to change their behavior. However, they want to do it the original way, and they're sort of passively aggressively, resisting it. Okay, so I've been in this situation. This is one of the very first challenges I had to deal with in my professional career. Actually, back when I was like 24 years old or something like that, supervising people for the first time. You have basically two options. Okay, if they're doing things in the X way, I'm going to call you Mr. X, and you want them to do things in the Y way, okay? What you need to do, the first approach is to make them believe that the Y way is better for them, okay? And what that means is that you have to show them the benefits, you have to explain the reasoning, you have to do all that kind of stuff to make them believe that that is the best way of doing it, okay? Now, this is going to require some work. However, the benefit, there's a big payoff if you do this work. And also, this is actually a bit of a litmus test to see for yourself if it's actually something worth doing, okay? You don't want to fight this battle if at the end of the day it really isn't, the right thing to do. It isn't easier, it isn't doesn't improve the quality. I understand it might make your job easier, but does it make their job easier? If the answer is no, you're going to have to give them a really good reason. You can't just say do this and have it make no sense from their perspective, okay? So that's the first thing to do, okay? Is to sort of win them over, to show them the benefits. And usually the way you do this is seeing is believing. You basically show them the benefit or the preferential result from doing it in the why method, okay, that you described. Okay, so that's the first way. The first way is to sort of sell it to them, persuade them. Okay, let's see if I can get this this working here. Okay, the second way, let's say for the sake of argument that for whatever reason you're either unwilling to do this or you can't do it. You can't succeed in persuading them to do it the way you would like. Okay, so in that case, you try a different approach, and the different approach is basically a bargaining kind of thing, where you say, like, look, I understand that you don't do that, you know, it doesn't make sense for you. However, I need you to do it this way. Now, if you do it this way, here's what's in it for you, okay? And you try that approach, okay? Because that's the other way to do things. If you want to motivate people, you got to give them a reason to do it. Okay. Now that can usually be the way the default kind of way for most people, especially workers, would be this little things. You know, if there's some little thing that they need or that they would like to see, you know, let's pretend that, you know, you're a real stickler for people coming into work on time or something. Okay. And occasionally people are late, right? You know, you could maybe work out a deal where, like, if you guys do it this particular way, do it the why method that I want, maybe I'll go a little easy on you if you're a couple of minutes late. You know, something like that. I'm just using this as an example. It would be something meaningful and something that makes sense. But that's the basic idea. Okay? So that's the way I would recommend doing that. So hopefully that makes sense for Mr. X, who sent in that question. Thank you for the question. Okay, today, to be honest with you, I didn't really envision this as like a pure Q&A. I actually had a bit of a thing that I wanted to cover. And I see that people are talking about interviews. This is not a live stream about, like, answering how to get a job. That's coming in an hour. Okay. In less than an hour, I'll be doing a live stream on that stuff. So if you could hold your questions about job interviews and that kind of stuff, we're talking about executive skills. That's what this is for. Okay. But I see that Youssef is there, and classic Italian culture is here. Youssef says, watching live from the office right now. Well, hopefully you're not going to get into trouble. Hopefully you got a boss button handy. So don't get fired because you're watching my live stream. That's all I'll say. Okay. Also, by the way, before we get into the stuff I want to talk about today, thank you to my members, Patreons, and super thanks donors. You guys are awesome. You make this whole thing possible. Okay, so if you want to improve yourself or realize your ambition, let's talk about executive skills. Okay, I was thinking of doing, I was starting this off possibly with showing you guys, if you haven't already done this, showing you what is available when you search this online, because the amount of misinformation and politically charged sort of commentary is incredible. I was quite surprised. So I'm just queuing up my browser here. Let's see if this will work again. Yeah, there we go. We got a browser window here. Let me just take care of a couple of things here. Okay, so if you go to Google and you type in, I don't know, skills for executives, I don't know what the ideal search term would be. You got a whole bunch of sponsored stuff. I guess it's big money. You got people trying to sell you MBAs. Okay, we got the Harvard Business Review. I don't know. Harvard Business Review. Harvard Business is supposed to be the gold standard for this kind of thing. I'm not sure about that. I've taken some courses from Harvard and things, and I'm not entirely convinced. There's some very smart people there, but there's a lot of weird stuff that is coming out of there in the Faculty of Business. Stuff that's just, like, for example, stuff that is being taught, in my experience, it's just my experience, that was being taught in the course that has been disproven in other areas. You know what I mean? So there's some weird stuff going on. But let's take a look at what people are saying, and we can start by reacting to this. Okay, first of all, they start by saying, well, everything's changed, okay? For a long time, whenever companies wanted to hire a CEO, they did this, but now everything is different. No, it isn't. I think some people would like it to be different. It isn't. The role of an executive is very, very simple. Okay. You're there to make money. You're there to ensure the long-term goals of the organization, meaning that it has to still exist. You can't flush the entire operation down the toilet, ruin your reputation, lose all your customers, and make no money. Okay. And I'm coming at this from the perspective of being in the private sector. Okay. Like you're in a for-profit operation. Okay. And for those who don't know, executives are hired and fired by the CEO and the board. Okay. So the board are the owners. If you work in a small company, the board will be the owners, the people that own the company. Some people buy a house. Some people buy a business. You take the same amount of money that you'd spend on a house or a couple of houses, you buy a business. So you own that business. You're the owner. And you can choose to have nothing to do with it and hire someone to run it for you, or you could do it yourself. But one way or another, you are the board. You are a director. Okay. So the CEO is the top person that you hire and put in charge of your baby, your thing, your business. Okay. That's the basic way this works. And then executives are the people that report to essentially the CEO directly. Okay. That obviously varies, but usually that's how that works. Okay. You have the executive management committee, which is the highest level of people who run the organization. And I'm gonna use the word company from now on. Okay. Technically, it might not necessarily be a company. It could be another type of organization, like a government or a hospital, or But I'm going to use the term company because that's what really I'm talking about here. It may work slightly differently in not-for-profit stuff and in the government and in the military and all this kind of stuff. But I'm talking about, for the purposes today, of a for-profit company. Okay, if that's your ambition to be an executive, that's what we're talking about. Okay, so you have an executive management committee. This is like the top group of people that run the company. Okay, and you have a president, someone who presides over that meeting or that group of people, and usually that's the chief operating officer, and then you have vice presidents, okay, that are in charge of different areas, right? Some people divide everything up into the C-suite. You have chief marketing officer, chief operations officer, chief financial officer, and they divide it up into function. It doesn't really matter how you do it. The same skills apply to all, and the same requirements really apply to all. Okay, let's get back to this. So there's a lot of politically correct kind of stuff in here. We all want to hear about leadership. We all want to hear about change management, social skills. Yeah. Okay. So there's a lot of this. Let's see what we got over here. Here's another article. Skills, executive skill set, cultural awareness, negotiate. It's like a lot of these, I think, are written by people that have never been executives that kind of are fantasizing about what you would actually do in that role. Because I think that a lot of these are like, is decision making a skill? Everybody makes decisions at every level. If you're a worker level, you got to make decisions about how you do your job, right? And that just, that just amplifies as you go up the chain, right? So it's not really a skill, right? If they're trying to say experience and good judgment, I mean, that's another thing, but it's not the right term to use. Cultural awareness, stress management. Yeah, these aren't exactly the top things you need. And finally, let's look at this example. Senior leadership skills. What experienced leaders need to know to succeed? The cost of lacking senior leadership skills. Yeah, the cost of lacking senior leadership skills, you destroy the entire operation. You get everyone, laid off. You get yourself laid off or fired. And you ruin all the work that people before you put in to build up, right? They built this thing up through years and years of understanding customers and their needs, having skills to be able to deliver and meet those needs. They built all this up through hard work and things a lot of times, and you could just poof, all gone, right? It's the source of income for many, many people at all levels, and you just ruined it. So that's the cost of not having these, right? So self-awareness, communication, influence. I know these are all skills, but like in the sort of most general possible sense, I suppose they are. Strategic thinking. Yeah, okay. Anyway, so that's the starting point. A lot of that stuff I don't think is particularly helpful, and it doesn't go into any detail of what specifically you need. Okay, so let's get into it here. Okay, now there is a difference between people at the worker level, people at the manager level, mid-management level, and people at the executive level. Okay, there's different there's different characteristics needed and different skills needed and different experiences needed because those jobs are different. Okay, now listen, before I even get into this, I'm just going to say it's a wide world out there. There are exceptions to everything. You know, I'm going to be talking about generalities here. I'm going to be talking about the way it usually works. Obviously, someone's going to always be able to come in and say, well, that didn't happen. My cousin worked here. And this. Yeah, there's going to be exceptions. Okay, I'm talking about in general. And this is coming from my experiences in a certain industry, in a certain country, right? So there's going to be differences there too. However, broadly speaking, there are differences in being a worker, being a manager, being an executive. You need different skills and you need different attitudes, okay? If you're a worker, you can be openly disgruntled about your job, for example. You know, a lot of people are. If you're a worker, you don't get to do the job on your own terms, and you sort of got to work under somebody's thumb. You know, in theory, you're not really paid to think, you're paid to do, and you know, you have to make, you know, usually somebody else makes the decisions, and then you have to sort of live with them, right? That's kind of how that works. So, you know what I mean? Like you don't need to understand what's going on. You don't need to be aware of how the business works or some of the realities of how things work, consequences of actions outside of the organization. You don't have to worry about that. At a mid-management level, that starts to come in, okay? You now have to make decisions about sort of groups of people, you're managing people, that kind of thing. But once again, you still don't really need to know how the business works, you know, what's going on outside of the organization. You're kind of oblivious to all that. You still have your little job, you know, with sort of a border around it. That's what you do. And everything outside of the border is not your job, right? The difference for executives is that border no longer really exists, okay? So there's a couple of differences that you guys, I'm sure, will know. Number one, you know, you have to represent the organization because you're now sort of more of a public figure, okay? People from outside the organization are going to be connecting with you, are going to be interacting with you. People at all levels, people for all purposes. That's how that works. And it's your job now to be able to handle all that, okay? You're going to be communicating outside the organization as a regular thing. Even if your job technically is mostly to work, you know, dealing with internal matters, you're going to have to be okay with communicating outside the organization. Now, what does that entail? That entails, first of all, having very good communication skills, okay, number one. So if you have a desire to be an executive, number one, work on your communication skills, okay? That means written communication, that means verbal communication, that means presentations, that means having some ability to persuade people, having the ability to deliver bad news, you know, and not have it result in people hating you and all this kind of stuff. So all those skills to do with communication. Then you are now, like it or not, a sort of walking representative of your organization, okay? You have to be on all the time, you know, when you're at work, when you're off work, because what you do, what you say, what you do, it reflects on the organization. You are their representative, okay? It's like being an ambassador. Okay, when you do something, it's not really you that's doing it, it's the company that's doing it, right? And you have to, first of all, be okay with that. Second of all, you got to realize that. And thirdly, you got to be able to play that role. Okay. Sometimes you can't just, well, not sometimes, a lot of times, you can't just keep it real. You can't just say what you think, because what you think is going to be interpreted as your company saying what it thinks, right? So you got to be aware of this stuff. So that's the first big change already. Now, before we go any further, some people understand this and some people don't. Now, if you don't understand this and you don't like that aspect, that may limit your career options. You might not be able to rise above a certain level, no matter how skilled you are. Okay, this is the thing. You could be technically extremely competent. You could be a genius in a technical area. But if you don't understand this, or you're unwilling to sort of play that role, that's going to be a really big problem if you want to be promoted into an executive role or build something up and play an executive role. Okay, I see a lot of people that don't really get that. And if you've ever wondered why, a lot of executives tend to be older, they don't tend to be 22 years old. Okay, it's because people usually only realize what I just said, this principle, over time. Okay, you want to be a hip kind of person and say what you think and keep it real, and you want to do this. But once you've had that blow up in your face several times, you then realize how talking to the public is different from talking to your friend. You can't talk to large groups of people the way you would talk to an individual. Things like, for example, no matter what you say, someone's going to disagree with. No matter what you say, someone's going to hate you. No matter what you say or do to other people, you're going to represent something in their perception. You're going to represent something that's, first of all, that you're not. They think you're this, but you're not that, right? So it usually takes a few years to realize this, to have that sort of become apparent. So I guess you could sum up all of this in terms of attitude. It's sort of an attitude to this stuff. Now, that being said, I think some people go too far. It's like, okay, I understand you're like an executive manager, but you can't, just some of the stuff that they spout, it's like this corporate BS that they spout, even I can't stand it. It's so full of buzzwords and flavor of the month stuff and, sort of public perception stuff and, but you realize that especially these days, it's also a highly charged political environment when you say stuff in public. And no matter what you say or no matter what you do or who you are, you're gonna annoy a lot of people. That's why a lot of people try and keep silent, as much as possible. The more you talk, the more you annoy people. That's kind of how it works. Vivian E, if I got that right, says, "Hi, Bill. Thank you for sharing your knowledge. You're absolutely welcome." And Tartaros says, "Hi from the Philippines." And Classic Italian Culture says, "You're the best." Thank you, Classic Italian Culture. You're the best, and thank you for being here. So, yeah. Okay. So we were talking about that attitude difference, representing the organization publicly, okay? You become a sort of public figure, okay? You have to be okay with that. Now, some people, okay, have the assumption that you can go from being a worker and then you get promoted to a supervisor, which is certainly possible, and then you get promoted to a manager, which is also possible, and then you can get promoted to an executive. In order for that to happen, you have to take on these other skills and abilities. You can't just be the same old person doing the same old thing and then keep moving up as a default, okay? You've got to be able to change how you think and the role you play. So even as I said, I can't emphasize this enough. Even if you have all the technical skills in the world, it will do you no good if you don't have the right attitude, because the last thing anybody wants that owns a business or is on the board, is sort of running a business, keeping a watchful eye on it, is promoting somebody into an executive management role, who's going to shoot their mouth off about a bunch of things, alienate a lot of customers, worry a lot of customers, and then have customers say, no, it's too risky doing business with you, or we don't like what you said, or we don't like what you stand for, or, we're nervous about some of the, the attitudes you have, or the intentions you have, or the opinions you have, this kind of thing. You can also, you can basically ruffle the feathers of everyone in the business environment, whether it doesn't have to be customers. It could be your vendors. It could be your partners. It could be suppliers. It could be other people in the industry. It could be regulatory bodies. It could be, the media. It could be all kinds of things, not to mention the general public. So, you know what I mean? Like, the last thing anyone needs is someone who's great technically. Maybe they understand a certain manufacturing process really well or whatever. Great. But if you promote that person, you're opening up a whole can of worms because they don't understand public relations. Okay. The other thing you need that's going to be super important here is interpersonal skills. You've got to be able to work with other entities and other people. And this can be very challenging, especially if those people are it's like oil and water, But you have to be able to make it work. At lower levels, you can maybe sort of avoid it by having your own little turf and things like this. As an executive, that's much, much harder. So the ability to kind of work with people and make some kind of entity flow, even if you really disagree on a lot of things, that's very important. For me, that hasn't been easy in my career personally. I have some very strong opinions. I'm a technically minded, detail-oriented introvert. So that's been very challenging. And the way that I've been able to do that, when I've been able to do it, is by having an open mind and being able to understand, why this other person who is like oil and water to me, who I just do not click with, what's so great about them? Why are they in this role? They can't be a complete idiot. They can't have accomplished nothing if they're in this role. So what is it that they've managed to do that's impressive? What are their accomplishments? If you want to try and respect somebody, if you want to try and get along with them, basically in a nutshell, I've learned that the way to do that is to have a respect for them. That doesn't mean you change your attitude and you just force it, but you genuinely respect them. You say like, I know you know what you're talking about. I don't understand your thinking, but you've been right a lot of times before, and you know what you're talking about when it comes to this. And the way to get that respect is to learn what their accomplishments are. So if you want to instantly try and work with somebody that you really don't get along with, try and find out their accomplishments. And if it's possible, try and get together with them and ask them about their accomplishments. Get them to explain, this is what I managed to do. I ran this department and we doubled the amount of business we did, and we did this other great thing. Get them to talk about it. And then at the end of the conversation, hopefully, you can go, oh, okay, I see you. Even though we don't click at all, you come from a completely different world. I know you have some skills, right? So that helps to work with them. It helps you able to go along with what they're saying. So there you go. People are still talking about interviews. This live stream is about leadership and executive skills. It's not really a Q&A per se, but in less than an hour, in half an hour, in fact, I will be doing a live stream called How to Get Hired, where I just do a Q&A about job interviews and that kind of stuff. So come back then. Don't leave if you're interested in this, but that's when I'll be answering the questions. Okay. So we covered representing an organization to the public. We represented trying to get along with people and have those interpersonal skills. At a cosmetic level and a cosmic level, you also have to manage people, but you're going to be doing that at the mid-level too. So you have to understand people. It's funny, when I was doing this screen here and looking at articles about, executive skills, it always comes down to leadership. That's what that's what, like, on the internet, everybody talks about. Yeah, leadership is important, but, think of it this way. The people that are going to be under you are usually mid-level managers, okay? They're paid pretty well for what they do. So all this talk of like inspiring people, I'm not saying it's bad, but I'm just saying it's not priority one. These people are paid very well to do their job. You shouldn't have to, really sort of baby them and stuff to get them to do their job, right? Maybe at a very low level, that stuff might apply, but it doesn't apply to executives. Okay? It really doesn't. That's not priority one. Priority one is making money. That's what priority one is. And a lot of the times, the reason that someone will hire you as an executive is because you have done something. You have created something, or you've led a group or, a team, and you've grown something. You've made a lot of money. You've found a lot of success. That's usually the reason why people will promote you into an executive role, okay? I don't know how it works at extremely large organizations at the upper level. First of all, there's not many people there. At Fortune 500 companies and so on, you're at the highest level, you're being promoted to the exec. There's not that many people there. That's like a tiny fraction of all the people out there, all the executives out there for a start are at those companies. There are many, many more executives at smaller companies. And the number one way you get hired there is because you've done something, right? Yes, there are exceptions. There are people that they know people in high places and they can sort of, do their office politics and sort of maneuver themselves into a job because they're friends with the boss and all this kind of stuff. But that does you no good if you can't deliver. Okay? It's temporary. You'll go there, you'll ruin the place, and then it won't end well, right? The reason you get those jobs is because you've done something. So if you've built up a business from scratch, if you've opened branch offices, across, the world or across the country, and you know exactly how to open a branch office efficiently, that's why they'll hire you. It's because of an accomplishment. So having the accomplishment is number one. And that's something you can get as you go up the ladder. You can make accomplishments. But if you have the accomplishment, but yet you don't have any of these other things, you don't have the communication skills, you don't have the attitude, you don't have the whole understanding of the role as a sort of PR side. If you don't have that down, that precludes you from being put into those roles, right? So there's a lot of things that have to come together. For example, there are many stories of people that have been promoted into executive roles that have been given good jobs, leading projects and, leading organizations or parts of organizations that were not well liked. Okay? Their subordinates didn't sing them praises. But they made a lot of money and they had a lot of success. That's very common. So this is my reply to all this stuff on the internet where people talk about, it's all about leadership skills. It's all about sort of, inspiring people and all this. I'm not saying that stuff bad. It is not bad, but it is not number one, and it is not the reason why people get hired for legitimate positions. Okay. Maybe the possible exception for that is in government or in organizations that have been around for a very long time. Right? I started my career at the railroad. I was at the railroad. The railroad, the attitude that was just pervasive throughout that entire industry was that the railroad has been around for over 100 years. It's been around for a long time. It'll be around for another 100 years. It's going to be here for a long time. We don't have to worry about big changes. It's always been here. It always will be here. That's the attitude that really permeated that industry. I've never seen anything like it. This feeling of like, this work is guaranteed. We're always going to have this work, sometimes falsely. So, things change quicker than you think. I think it's Bill Gates that said, people underestimate the amount of change you can have. They overestimate the amount of change you can have in 1 or 2 years, but they underestimate the amount of change you have in 10 years. Right? It's true. It's definitely true. So where was I here? Okay. So if you want to be promoted into an executive role, okay, there's a couple of things you need. We talked about the attitude. We talked about interpersonal skills. We talked about communication skills. But the number one thing you need is some kind of accomplishment. You have to be the go-to person for a certain thing, and a certain thing that will result in some kind of financial success. Okay? So as I say, if you've sold a lot of products, if you've started a successful business operation, if you've solved major business problems, and so forth, right? If you've done any of those things, that will make you a contender, right? But then there's also all the soft skills, all the other things that you need. It's sort of like getting a real job, right? Like getting like a job I normally talk about at a lower level, right? You got to be qualified to do the job, right? That's like the equivalent of this. You have to have some kind of major accomplishment. You have to be the go-to guy or gal for like a certain thing, right? You want to do this, you call him or you call her, right? But as we all know, just being qualified for a job doesn't mean you're going to pass the job interview, right? You also need to have them like you. You need to have them feel assured that you're motivated to do the job. You're not going to get in there and, instantly be wanting to look for something better. You want to make sure that your past checks out, and this sort of thing, and that you have the right attitude. You can follow rules, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a lot of boxes to tick. There's a lot of boxes to tick for this. Now, another box to tick if you want to be an executive, okay, in the vast majority of cases, is you need to know at least the basics of finance and marketing. Okay, marketing is not really valued universally the way that I think it should be, but certainly finance is. The language of business is money. Okay, you need to be able to speak the language. You need to be able to understand finance. For those of you who don't know, accounting is the study of money in the past. Finance is the study of money in the future. Okay? So when you talk about what should we do this project? Should we upgrade our computer system? Should we hire 10 more people? Should we take out this loan from a bank? Should we, get into making this product? Should we acquire this other company? Those are all what ifs, right? That's planning for the future. So if you're going to make those kind of decisions, you also need to be able to have the ability to say, okay, if we do this option, that is going to have a certain probability of making this much money in this time frame. And we're going to compare that with option B. If we do this other thing, that's going to have a certain probability of making this much money in this time frame, right? So if you wanted to, you could just reduce all of these options down to simple financial numbers, right? And decide, okay, we're going to go with the thing that makes us the most money, right? That's one way to make these decisions. It's not the only way. It's not the only perspective, but it is a big perspective. And you need to be able to do that. How do you learn that? You learn the basics of finance. You can take a course in university or community college or whatever. You could take my $100 MBA course, which, I have a link to in the video. That's one of the things it covers. I recommend a really amazing textbook, actually, for that. But you need to have the basic. If you don't have an understanding of that area, that's really going to limit you. It's practically unheard of for people at that level to not understand this stuff. And it's not the same as accounting. I want to emphasize that. Accounting is something completely different. Accounting is literally, without being disrespectful, it's literally bean counting, right? It's just where did the money go? How much did we spend on this? How much are we owed? It's it's money in the past. It's what happened in the past. This is completely different. This is decision making based on the ability to forecast and the idea of risk. Okay. Somebody once asked me, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, what do you think? And I said, well, I don't know. I did read that book, or I don't know if it's one book or many books, but I read one book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad, I don't know, when I was 20 years old or something. Yeah, it's like finance with absolutely no understanding of the concept of risk. They pay attention to the return, but absolutely no attention paid to the concept of risk. What's the risk? And it was in the real estate business, and that's, I think, a problem that's not uncommon in real estate, where people just assume prices go up all the time until they don't, and then everyone panics, and then you have, a global recession. But yeah, finance is very important. Most people don't really require an in-depth understanding of marketing to be an executive, but I personally believe that it should be, because a lot of people that get promoted into some of those roles that have no idea about like the basics of marketing, you witness them making very bad and very elementary blunders. It does not go well. I've seen chief financial officers, who, depending on the needs of the organization, they might just be glorified accountants. This is how much money we made. This is, our financial position. This is how much equity we have, how much debt, that kind of stuff. And there you go. They might talk to banks occasionally to get loans and things. They'd have to deal with mechanical stuff like payroll and other services. But, people that don't understand anything, like even the absolute basics of marketing. And that can really backfire when these people get in front of a microphone and start making public statements. Yeah, amateur. So not that it's really recognized, but I'd highly recommend just learn the basics. Learn the basics of marketing. It will serve you well, okay? You will suddenly realize like what the whole point of business is if you've never learned that. If you've just taken, say, accounting your whole life, you won't understand business. You won't understand what it's about. What its goal is there and how to get success. You will not understand that, right? You might understand things like operations management, but you don't understand anything to do with customers. And people that are like the chief operating officers of organizations, I've met some of these people that are like extremely gruff and not personal at all, and it's like, wow, you are a liability to your company. Imagine if institutional customers got to meet you and you were raw and unpolished and you just turned them off, which I'm sure you've done, and I've seen people do this. Yeah, it's bad. Okay, I'm just kind of casually looking at the comments as they come in here. Cajun Cracker Ranch says, "Good morning, Bill." Good morning, Cajun Cracker Ranch. Kevin Roble says, "Hey, Bill, you're awesome. Please keep these videos coming. I landed 3 jobs using all your tips ever since. God bless." Well, thank you very much, Kevin Robles, and congratulations on the 3 roles. Hopefully, you will be able to get something that works for you long term. Get some stability there. Hopefully, this one is that. Mihai, is that how you say that? What's the biggest difference in mindset when switching for an operational role to be an executive role for the first time? Okay, if you've been in operations, okay, like that's what I'm assuming you're talking about. You've been in operations, your whole career. You've been dealing really, internally into your organization. You're not like some kind of representative. You're not someone that's always going out of your organization to connect with customers or suppliers or partners or whatever. You're going to need to know the marketing side. Okay. So number one, that's something that you can study. Like you can learn that from a book. Okay. The other big thing is that if you want to be an executive, okay, and assuming that, they feel that you can do the job, you have some kind of major accomplishment under your belt, that makes them believe in your technical abilities, okay? The other things, like I said earlier, the things you're going to tack on is you're going to have to change your attitude, okay? We talked about that earlier. Okay, just the recognition that, you're representing the organization, okay? So you have to understand PR, you have to understand public relations and how that works. The other thing is that your communication skills have to be very good. So written communication, verbal communication, the ability to do presentations, the ability to, to a very minor degree, the ability to negotiate. Negotiation is kind of like this hollow thing. Everybody thinks that it's all about what you say when you're across the table with somebody. It's not. It's absolutely not. That's what it appears like, but it's not. Negotiation is creating the competitive position, creating a position of advantage where you have many options, where you have, an advantage. And so all you do is you communicate what your situation is and what you need. It's really, the interaction itself is not that hard, right? It's about doing your homework and understanding the situation, understanding your options. That's what negotiation is. So communication skills, written, verbal, presentation, and interpersonal skills, the ability to be able to work with somebody. That's separate. That's different from communication skills. Okay. Interoperating or interacting with other people, that's more about behaviors. That's not what you say, or what you're trying to send to the other person. That's how you behave. Okay? Like, for example, I'm sure we've all encountered people that listen very politely to you and then ignore everything you say, right? They might engage in active listening, for example, when you're talking, and you might feel that they're relatively pleasant to deal with when you have a conversation. But then if they go away and ignore everything you said and they don't take any of your suggestions and they don't communicate with you the things that you said you're wanting to know, right? That's the behavior part. Okay. So all of that is very important. You're going to have to tack on a lot of these soft skills. So hopefully that makes sense. I'll just take another question here. J Boss says, what is the fastest way a lead software developer with well over a decade experience switch to an executive position? Well, everything I just said kind of applies. You're going to have to tack on all kinds of other things, because let me tell you, just because you can develop software does not mean you're a good executive. In fact, it can work pretty strongly against you. Okay? Because it creates a certain attitude, a certain cockiness, a certain arrogance, right? Like, let's say you've created I don't know what your accomplishment is. In the world of developing software, maybe you developed, a piece of software, or maybe you developed a feature for it, or maybe you debugged it, or you made it user-friendly, or some major accomplishment. Okay, that's great. That's great. But if nobody wants to deal with you, that's going to shoot yourself. It's going to end any kind of potential you would have in that role. If after a customer talking to you doesn't want to work with your company, that's going to end, your sort of potential as an executive, right? Doesn't matter how technically accomplished you are. You could be Albert Einstein, you could be Nikola Tesla, but if you can't, if you can't work with people, or people don't want to work with you, or you can't sell your company's products, you can't evangelize about them and say something that people will respond to. It doesn't matter how logical your arguments. The only thing that matters is do people respond to it, right? It's not about you. It's about them. It's about the effect you have, right? So that's the stuff I would tune into. Okay. It's no longer about technical skills. If you've proven yourself technically at the mid-level, and you've also, led teams and stuff like that, you've got all those basic skills down, that's great. But at the executive level, you're going to have to persuade people, right? A lot of people in those types of environments, they don't really understand the difference between authority and power. They think that authority and power are the same thing. They think that the reason you get people to do stuff is because you're the boss, right? And what you say goes, right? I tell you to do this and you do it. Now, if you think that's the only way you can have influence on people, you are in for a very rude awakening. Because, for example, customers, you can't order them around. You can't order them to buy something. You have to persuade them. You have to make them want to do it, right? You can't dictate to them. Partners, suppliers, all these entities around you in the business environment, regulators, the media, anyone else that you got to deal with, you can't dictate to them. You can't say, this is what we're doing, and then have them instantly get on board, right? You have to make them want to get on board. You have to make them want to see it your way or agree with you, right? So this is like a huge gear shift for people that have only worked internally throughout their whole career. You know, they get orders, they do it, and then they become a manager and they give orders and other people do it, right? So you need to understand that. Some people don't even understand that's the game that they're playing, and it results in absolute failure. Other people, they realize it, but they just haven't developed those skills because they trivialize them. They think like, you know, I know math and I know programming. I know how to do a triple integral and I know all this kind of stuff. You know, I hate sales talk. I hate fake corporate people who talk a bunch of, you know, corporate speak, and it's all BS, don't you know? And because of that attitude, they don't understand it. They don't respect it. So they will never do it. And it shoots them in the foot. Right? This is, and I'm going to end today's stream here because I've got 2 minutes until my next live stream, but I'm going to end it on an extremely unpopular truth. And that is that I see a lot of people that are sort of making these mistakes, in my opinion, and they're in their 20s and 30s. And usually people that are at 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, they're waiting until these people in the 20s and 30s, they're waiting until they've failed, because that will come. And then what that does is it makes you a bit more humble, and it makes you have a bit more respect for other areas, right? No matter what area you're in, like if you're a developer and you don't have any respect for, say, sales, part of the reason you don't see a lot of executives that are like in their 20s and 30s, especially from operations and things, is because they don't respect that stuff. You wait till they learn. You wait till you see that they feel the effects of like, I think I know it all, and it's not working. And then they come out of that with a much more open mind, and then they respect different perspectives, and then they're able at that point to then learn all the other different perspectives so they can incorporate them. And this is an example. You know, you got to tack on the social skills, you got to tack on the sales ability, you got to tack on, you know, things like finance, right? You got to be able to have respect for those other perspectives. And that's what, now you're a contender. That's what you do, and now you're a contender. You guys like my wonderful free-flowing public speaking abilities? This is me talking completely off the top of my head. And as you can see, it's wonderful. Thank you for being here. You guys are awesome. And once again, I'd like to thank everyone. There's 26 people here. I'm surprised. You know, you guys are great. You listen to my horrible, rambling stream of consciousness stuff. I want to talk more about this stuff. I have no idea what the structure should be for YouTube or what the audience is. So I'm just jumping in and doing it and seeing what I get. So I'm starting to learn by seeing the questions you guys have. And I will be back. I will do another one of these leadership streams. I've committed to 5 episodes. There's going to be an episode 4 and episode 5. And those will be coming up. And the big announcement I have is I'm coming out with a 3rd course. Okay. And I don't have a final title, but the working title is Write Like a Pro. If you want exceptional written communication skills, this is what this course is for. Okay. It's going to be out, I'm hoping, in a month. It's going to be $100 to take it. But for people who order early, it's going to be like 75 or something like that. I will have more details hopefully within a week, and I'll let you guys know what's going up with that. But it's kind of a companion to this stuff we're talking about now. It's a companion to the $100 MBA course, wherever that is right here. Because, it really goes into how to communicate with executives, how to communicate professionally, how to communicate in such a way that people don't read a bunch of things in. It doesn't signal that you're an idiot, that you're uneducated, that you're 20 years old. It doesn't signal, you're, sort of maybe, it's a bad word, but infantile kind of opinions. It's like, no, this is a professional, educated, competent, highly capable person. That's what it's going to signal. It's going to teach you how to do that. And I suppose it's also a companion to the Get Hired course right there. Because if you're communicating with recruiters or you're getting a job through networking, then you will need, reasonably good communication skills if you're doing the thing I recommend and reaching out to hiring managers who are themselves executives. So you got to be able to write a note in a way that, makes a very, very good first impression. So, Julia says, can I buy the 3 courses at once? Yeah, there's the third one doesn't exist yet. It will be up within a month, and I will have details within a week. The 2 other courses, you can get them anytime. They're hosted by 2 different websites. One is Thinkific and the other one is Teachable. I did that to kind of diversify it. Also, I dealt with Teachable, and it was a horrible user interface experience for me. So that's the deal. So the third course will be on a third platform. But anyway, thank you for being here. You guys are awesome. I'm going to be back in a second with my Q&A session, but I'm going to end this one first. Take care and absolute best of luck.